Throughout history, people have made amazing accomplishments that define themselves. Now, it's our turn to tell those accomplishments, to tell his story, her story, their story, and even your story. With Mike Wexler.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Your Story. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys do the usual, like, comment, subscribe, whatever. I'm not a YouTuber. Okay, technically I am, but like I hate doing that, all that stuff. But I have this very, very legendary guest. You see that my throat's going up because this guy is really, really a legendary person. We've teased this for a long time. Hopefully, you know, we had hoped for so long on Draped in Gold. We've seen, you know, all the live streams and the year-end awards that we have for THS, that we teased this for so long, but now it's finally happening. I got this guest right here who is a podcast extraordinaire, that is a influencer, that is killing it when it comes to TV productions and getting involved in all these projects. Also just doing some DJing a little bit, also a co-founder. Like this man, I'm going to say his name already because this man's already legendary, but the one and only Flobo.
Whoa. I am not an influencer. No one's ever influenced by what I'm doing at all. But thank you so much for telling your story. I've been teasing it because I feel like I was the only person on the planet who wasn't on the show, who wasn't good enough to be on the show. So I had a bit of a mission to qualify to be on your podcast. So thank you so much.
No, I mean, hey, I mean, I'm happy that you're on. I'm glad that we could get a conversation going. You know, and of course we had to tease it for a little bit for so long.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to pop up first is just how much like projects that you have right now that you're killing it in when you talk about the Mac Mania podcast, Draped in Gold. You know, THS you're involved in with a lot. Like, how do you feel right now knowing that you're doing so much and you're putting yourself out there?
Well, you know what? It doesn't feel like I'm doing much at all. And I don't mean that to brag. Like, it's nothing for me. Because it comes down to, like, thankfully, or I don't know if I blame or give credit to the algorithms. A lot of times we'll have days where I work on the Mac Mania show, like Tuesday mornings. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to warm the voice up, to do 7 a.m. recording for Mac Mania. But like my podcast, I can like load up. My writing I do at night. When I get up in the morning, I dabble with all my comedy material. So like I try to do a little bit each day, so it doesn't seem like it's so much heavy. But it's that when anything rolls out, or you Google my name, it's like, damn, he's doing 40 things at once. He's a machine.
Right. I mean, no, you are like you mentioned before. I mean, you see the hard work put in. You know what I mean? Waking up early, getting the content in, you know, and it really reflects with your content. I mean, what people don't probably realize is that if you put the work in and, you know, sure, you're not going to see a lot of results instantly. You know, people are going to see that hard work because people now, I think, go back to your original content. So like they can see the hard work from the beginning.
I think one of the things about the perfect example is this is like, there's not been one episode that changed the game for me. It wasn't like, oh, that interview with this person made me that, but consistency does matter. Like we got Andy Shepard from NXT UK to do our show because we were the only show, Draped in Gold in this case, we were the only show that recapped NXT UK as soon as it went off the air. And so he jumped on and was like, oh man, I like the fact you're the only one doing it week in, week out. And now you can Google my name on Google. And I used to be on page 3 because the Flow bots were a big brand or whatever. But now I'm page 1 because of just consistency. So yeah, hard work on that end for sure.
Oh, yeah. And then speaking about NXT UK, I do want to go into Draped in Gold. Of course, recapping about NXT. Well, now is NXT 2.0. But not only that, but NXT UK. You know, what I find interesting is that, and I don't know how about you feel about Flobo, but like I feel like that covering something consistently like NXT UK, because I feel like when it comes to the American audience, we really don't watch as consistently of NXT UK as more so like the UK audience. But since you guys are making weekly reviews about NXT UK, I feel like that's something that's going to create something bigger for you know, all these other podcasts and maybe even WWE to come.
It kind of fell into it. This is like the middle of the pandemic, and before the pandemic, my co-host Jack Farmer and I were both at AfterBuzz TV, which I think suspended its video operations, and we're both on the wrestling shows. And so during the pandemic, Jack wanted to resurrect AEW recap, and I was doing the NXT show. Let's recap NXT, and I said, "Well, NXT is fine, but I don't want to get up and go to my bedroom to talk about the wrestling show every week like that. I go, I actually watch NXT UK as a fan, but I'm tired of like no one knowing about it. I'll do it. I only talk about NXT UK. And it's funny, the first couple episodes, it was NXT first and then UK, and you saw the drop off. The fans like, we're done. But I said, you know what, let's flip it, because if everyone's here for the main event, just put it on its head. And when that happened, a lot of the talent from NXT UK are online at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Thursday local time to interact with the little fan base comparatively speaking that's around. So it became like a thing, like a party. You know, we had NXT UK talent like us, retweet us, comment on us. Jack Farmer has his kayfabe relationship with Eddie Dennis because he says he's so smart or whatever. So it becomes like this UK party. And I think that a lot of people like kind of give us a little bit of respect of finding a niche, not like out of like, let's do a niche to be famous, but look, we love this thing. We love it so much just to get more people to watch and tune in.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool when you're covering something that's not necessarily like everybody's covering it. You know what I mean? Like everybody has a wrestling podcast. Everybody has, well, I mean, yeah, especially in 2022, we have a lot of wrestling podcasts. But like when you're covering something that's really not in the shine of light with NXT UK, it's really something like, okay, like I could do this, like, or I think of doing this now. It's kind of something that's like, you know, they're doing something that's cool and that's really revolutionizing, excuse me, the podcast game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the product is so much better or different. I'll say different. Main roster stuff is more entertainment based. AEW is more sports based, but NXT UK definitely has combat based. Everyone can break a bone, even the refs. And so to me, that's kind of like why I loved when I was a kid. I love having these Titans clash or whatever. So it's giddy. Like seriously, if more people watch NXT UK, Draped and Gold would be a UK show. That's how much of a fan we are, and it kind of shows.
Oh yeah, and then speaking about like the podcast that you were involved with, I do want to touch on Draped and Gold one more time a little bit. You know, you obviously have Jack Farmer as a co-host, and you guys, you know, watch it consistently. Is there any point when you're watching the product that you're like, it's the same, it's kind of a run-on, or it's always exciting every time you watch?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So to give the quick answer, we're only human. And there's no way that everything is going to be on point every single week. But the way I approach it is you got to understand that people who listen to our show, in theory, watch the other shows. So they're coming from a fan perspective. So they may be disappointed with something or something that doesn't make sense, but ultimately you don't want to sit there and turn into a rant. Now, there's a lot of people out there in the wrestling space, I won't name names, who have made careers out of just going on and ranting. This is so stupid. But what happens after that? See you next week.
Right.
So it could be a match. I gotta say right now, I'll be first to admit this. When 2.0 relaunched, I gave it an honest chance. But I think the third week, they had introduced 9 new characters at once. And I said, I can't even produce this show, guys. Like, I'm sorry, because there's so many debuts. I don't know what's going on. Finally starting to gel 3 or 4 months later. But I think people understand that as long as you're authentic, you can be fun. You can not sugarcoat, but you can say things a lot more colorfully without trying to disparage the hardworking men and women that do the product. I think fans understand that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, coming from a fan's perspective myself, I feel like that with NXT 2.0, it was kind of one of those things where if you're a fan of FCW back in the day, it's kind of like one of those where it's like it's something kind of not getting used to at first, but you're going to look back at it when you look at the current NXT champion right now, which is Braun Breaker. It's a guy that has huge potential. And then same thing goes with a lot of these guys that are, like you said, kind of just brand new out of nowhere, like Tony D'Angelo, oh my gosh, I can't remember what their names is. They're brothers, Butch, Bruce. I think it's one of those two.
Julie, the Creed brothers?
Yeah, Creed brothers. There we go.
Okay,
I apologize if you're watching the Creed brothers. I apologize if I butcher your name. But basically what I'm saying is, like even after all the just recent debuts, we're trying to establish who these characters are and who these, athletes are. You're going to look back at it, maybe a year from now, 10 years from now, you're going to be like, wow, these guys are now main stars or are still in NXT 2.0. So I have that kind of FCW theory where like we look at people like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, who was known as, I think he was known as Tyler Black, still just kind of transitioning into Seth Rollins. But you still looking back at that footage and you're like, wow, like look where they have came from to now.
Absolutely. I think the FCW era and also the pre-prime NXT, the 2016 into 18, right before right before the 2 Hour USA, like right before the Indie Fed came in, where guys like Bo Dallas was champion and things like that. Like that era is also like NXT 0.5, I guess. You call it.
I don't know. I mean, of course I miss the old NXT, but I mean, hey, we have to move with the times, and I get that. And speaking about moving with the times, I do want to transition into the award-winning host, which is Flobo. Yes, of course. Can you talk to us about, your beginnings? I mean, obviously, you've started on this journey, and you've found very much success with it. So can you talk to us about those beginnings for you?
Oh man, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Power Ranger. That would have been a whole different story altogether. It's a crazy thing, man, because like most good things in life, and I learned this pretty late, unfortunately. It's like the good things you fall into. The ones you plan, you never get. I left home because I wanted to be a financial analyst. And I got to undergrad. I realized I wanted to be a film editor. Came out to LA, realized, okay, film editing is a pain in the butt. That kind of got me to writing and content production. And it's put me through a crazy journey of working for clients like Fox, BT, ESPN. I got my film degree out here. I got my master's degree out here. So it was kind of a thing. As far as the broadcasting thing, I come from comedy. 2014, I was on stage for the first time as a comedian. I thought to myself, this is what I wanted to do for the longest time. But unfortunately, I'm not trying to complain, but unfortunately, promoters only book you if you have a following. Mm-hmm. And so most people will complain, but I said, okay, how do I get a following? And I went to AfterBuzz TV because they were doing after shows that were being live streamed. I said, if I show up, say some funny quips on some digital audience that was already built in, I may generate a following to get me booked as a comedian. And well, the detour of that was there was a pandemic, AfterBuzz closed down, I started doing my own shows, and now I'm like ahead of a podcast network that I own, hashtag co-founded, you know what I mean? So it is kind of interesting to go with the flow on that level, but I always say that my ultimate dream was to be myself, whether it is on stage, whether it is an editor, whether it is a broadcaster or a show producer. I got to be Flobo Boys, and now esports too. I mean, why not, man? I'm living.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that journey, and you talk about just those humble beginnings. I mean, it's awesome when you get to pandemic or not. You know what I mean? Like you get to surround yourself with people that are passionate or as passionate as you, that really help you go to where you need to go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. When you don't forget the people that help you out, that vouch for you, that got you in. I think that's what makes it great. So when my friends are winning for their own ways of doing it, I'm excited. Because I know all help is voluntary. So, you know what I mean? And when Mike Wexler gets to be like the new like Ariel Helwani, and I hope he doesn't forget about me then. I'm like, oh, remember me? This boy, Flobito. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. You know? How could I forget about the legend known as Flobo? And the reason why I say, okay, and just to clarify on this podcast, I say legend a lot. And that's my terminology, that's my vocabulary of saying, that this person is a legend. He, she, they, are a legend for a reason. You know what I mean? Like I think of them as either a positive influence that have been, doing awesome things, or B, they're a friend of mine, and that's literally my terminology for friend or awesome person. So
I'll take it. Oh, if legend's a term like that, then yes, we're definitely legends, baby.
Yeah. And another thing I do want to mention too is the fact that you get to work with all these incredible people. You've gotten to work with, of course, the Jack Farmer. Shout out to Jack Farmer on that one. You've also worked with, just so many people within like AfterBuzz, just so many people within the industry. What has it been like just working with these people like a Johnny Loquasto or, even Jack Farmer, Evan T. Mack, who's been a huge legend in WWE's The Bump. What was it like kind of working with them?
It is kind of this weird mix mash. I'm not sure how much of the backstory you know, and if your viewers know this and whatever. I knew Johnny Loquasto from wrestling back in 2011. John Loquasto, the artist formerly known as Christian Rosenberg. We were all like Josh Tariff. We were all in Mach 1 wrestling in Anaheim and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood back when the show was actually in Hollywood on Melrose and La Brea by Pink's Hot Dogs. And so I knew them from them. Jack Farmer and I were actually DJs together at the same DJ company. We DJed events and weddings and stuff. And one day, sometimes I would come and help each other out on things. So I was like his assistant one day, and we talked about how much he loved wrestling. And we just became close on that. So back to AfterBuzz, that place where I was making shows, I got Jack in there, and Jack got the reps of being a broadcasting host in wrestling. And I kind of like opened up the whole avenue for him, not taking credit because he had the talent all for days, but like, it's interesting to see how like we met in one space in music, and now we're both in the wrestling thing. And Evan Mack, back to AfterBuzz. I just jumped in. I wanted to be in every other post show or after show they had, and AfterBuzz goes, "Hey, look, we have this Super Bowl show. We need some people to do a watch along. It's a 4-hour ordeal. Can you do 4 hours?" I'm like, "Yes, but I like football, but not enough to be like, whoa, that you should did a button hook there." So I'm like, "Gotta play." Yeah. So they put us in a room with like, a couple of the staff from my other network, and Evan was there as well. So we kind of met trying to make the Super Bowl. That was like the one that was like the Patriots were the last one they won, where it was like a defensive classic. Sound like it was a good one. But truth be told, if you go back to that video, it's on YouTube. I actually stopped and watched Halftime Heat at the Performance Center time because I was like, whatever, I'm on to this. And so, I mean, even though Evan and I have been together for like 3 years, we've been working together for 3 years. It's almost like we've been around for decades,
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, I mean, it's about surrounding yourself with influential people and like positive people, that want to have that same goal to just succeed and maybe even to become a broadcaster, like I feel like too. And I've talked to a lot of people about this. I've talked to Alyssa Marino. I've talked to John LaQuasto, just a lot of people with AfterBuzz. Of course, the Jack Farmer. I have to say the Jack Farmer for that plug. By the way, if you see Draped in Gold podcast, you see me in the comment section, and I say that a lot. So that's what it's referring to. Oh, yeah. But other than that, I feel like AfterBuzz TV creates, all these passionate broadcasters. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it definitely is a what you make it. Because you'll notice with the pandemic, you really see who was about the craft of broadcasting, those who were more into producing, those who wanted to be more of a writer. Like they basically gave you the skill set, and people kind of extracted what they did. And so I would say this: I thought I was better at with being witty and timing, but I still had to learn how to do formats. And that's what AfterBuzz gave me the most. All my shows have a format because I am nobody famous. No one's going to tune into me just because Flobo hosts a show. But when you tune into Draped in Gold, you're going to get intro, talk, UK, break, NXT, MVP of NXT, see you next week, every single time.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great format too. I mean, that reminds me of the good old days of the AEW post game, post podcast, and and I had the honor of being on as well. But like the format, as you mentioned before, is it's professional, but it also keeps you on track throughout the entire process.
Absolutely, that's kind of have the fun.
One other thing too, by the way, one of those broadcasters I did forget to mention is TK Trinidad, who's doing absolutely great out there. So shout out to TK. But one of the other things I do want to mention as well is the fact that you started out as a DJ, as a disc jockey.
Yeah.
I actually just became a DJ as of this recording. This is probably going to come out later, but as of this recording, I became a DJ for my university podcast, for my university radio.
Nice.
So being a DJ, it's kind of cool because you get to kind of feel the room, feel kind of the audience that you're kind of reaching, and it's like, okay, because with ours, it's more of local bands, people that are coming from the area. Yeah. But it's awesome, just kind of like having a feel for your audience and really just figuring out what fits for the room, what kind of reads the room.
Oh yeah, so it's kind of funny you talk about that because people always ask me how long you've been DJing, and I always say that question has 3 answers. In 2017 was when I became a DJ under my own banner. So reading a room, reading a client, see what client fit you're going to have. I learned that as a business owner, which is something I recommend to do even if you do it for fun or it's a hobby, just the idea how to run a business, income, outcome, that kind of thing. In 2015, where Jack and I met, we're at what's called a multi-op company, where a company will have a roster of DJs you book with the company, and then they contract you out and go, you're going to be with Jack on Thursday. And it's kind of cool, but a little impersonal. But that's where I really cut my teeth in Southern California events. But I first started moving songs back on CDs in 2005. I know, right? In college, because I'm old as heck. At WFCF St. Augustine, 10,000 watts of mega power, where I got to learn about, you're right, breaking new music, trying to see what's next for an audience who may not be seeing the beaten path and playing to a format. That's the kind of thing that puts me in a bit of a leg up there. That learning structure now, but definitely understanding the importance of giving people what they want and also giving something you think they will need in the future, which I think was pretty cool. So I'm so glad you got the chance to do that in the collegiate side because that's so so valuable. Like up there with Jewish delis, college radio is so valuable to our culture, man.
Right. No, yeah. Like I've realized working at a college radio, well, not really working, it's more of a class, but you know, well, yeah. But just kind of working as a DJ, especially for a college radio, you see a lot of trends when it comes to the music, what college students listen to, what even professors listening to if they live on campus, or even just passing by listening on the radio, even at the head honcho of the entire university listens to. So it's like, you know, you're really kind of looking for kind of something that fits everybody.
Yeah, doing that and still having a cohesion to what you're doing is when they go, hey, do I call you Talking Monkey Mike anymore? No. Hey, DJ Mike Wexler, he's pretty awesome. Bring him back or give him a new show or what have you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I remember when I first got after my first shift, which happened to be last Thursday. It was funny because my family at home were like, what is going to be your name? Are you going to be DJ Sock Monkey? Or are you going to be DJ Wex? Like, I don't know. I think I'm just going to be Mike Wexler.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it actually sounds like a DJ name, bro. Like keep it on wax, keep it on Wex. I love it. Yeah.
Weekly Wex.
Just do it.
Oh man, I don't know, but hey, maybe we could get something going on. One other thing I do want to mention as well, so Flobo has so many legendary podcasts, whether that's through the Commander's Log, whether that's through Macamania Podcast, whether that is What's Up with Flobo, right?
Hey.
Like, so one of the things I do want to ask you is that, and this is kind of a personal question too, because as someone myself who has managed so many projects at once, you know, doing podcasts like this, doing work, doing, you know, having, taking care of family and all this other stuff, aside from other projects that I'm also doing as well, you know, what's your best advice to maintaining like all your projects at once?
Yeah. You know, there's always a thing where I like to have myself a content audit. It's always good to sit back and look at what you're thinking and what you're wanting. Not necessarily what the ratings are, because you may not get ratings. I think Commander's Log is a perfect example of this. After the first season of Commander's Log, where people review Star Trek Discovery, the ratings weren't good. But I thought, hey, look, it's a fun perspective because I'm a new fan of Star Trek. People who actually saw the show really liked it. Let's go back and do it. And then we have an uptick in ratings, for example. Now, compare that to one of my favorite shows, What's Up Flobo After Hours, which is no longer on the air anymore. Yeah, it's here. That show to me was super fun because that was closer to what the dream was. I mean, I really wanted to be the host of a late night variety show, but I said, look, the show is great. The guests are great. The numbers are actually one of the best, but it takes me about 9 hours to produce a week. And if that was my only project, it wouldn't be a big deal. But it's one of 7, and it airs at 10 p.m. on Monday night, where I have to get up at 5 a.m. for Macmania. So let me just decide to sunset that. So I do think it's very important to be honest with yourself. If you're creatively fulfilled, if you have an engagement, people tend to like it. Also, those days where you feel no one's watching, it's not true. No one's watching it yet. Like you were saying, people will come back to your stuff. And also have some time for your more obscure projects. Like I said, 9 hours to After Hours. What's Up Flobo, the classic version, 20 minutes. Plug on the recorder. Hey, man, cheese is great. See you next week. I mean, it's not that complicated.
Yeah. I mean, you have to maintain like a flow with Flobo. Like, see how I made it right there? Flow with Flobo.
I love it.
No, but it's honestly, that's how it is. You have to maintain a flow or a good workflow. Especially with someone like myself, that's 23, that's like still, getting himself out there, maintaining all these projects. And it's, it's still a challenge, but I mean, I think it's still manageable.
What's your content calendar like? Is it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Is it Monday, Friday?
So here's the thing. So originally my idea was that I was going to create at least, 2 things of content a week, 2, 3. I have friends out there that are killing it with everyday things, with, every other day. Like there's more of a consistent level with those people, which shout out to you guys. That's something I can't do. But that I used to think like I got to put out multiple content. I got to, but I realized, in my early ages, like about 17, 18, that it's like, in my opinion, I don't know how you feel about Flobo, but it's the way that you promote your content. It's the way it's the way that you, you know, like put it out there. Cause like I could be putting out interviews like this every single day. Is it going to guarantee to have the views that it has? No, but, but if you promote one episode for that week and you hype it up all this week, and then finally Friday comes, which every Friday at 9 a.m. PST, your story, you know, I feel like that's, you know, not only consistent, but it's also, it's better promoted and it keeps fans like engaged.
I think that's the key. There's a whole debate about more content or less content. I don't get into it because I know everyone has their thing about that, but I'm a firm believer in, if you're planning to do a piece of content a week, give it a time slot, right? If you were NBC, you're not gonna be like, oh, we got 13 episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine this year. When? I don't know. They say no, Sunday night, 9 o'clock or whatever, it's going to be there. So that's the best way to do it. To put you in that kind of rhythm. I know cognitively, today's Tuesday, I do this, that, the other thing, plus the extra stuff. Or if I'm not doing anything extra out the ordinary, day off, whatever. But having a structure there is really, really important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like that really helps, especially with, you know, ever since the start of pandemic where we had literally everybody's doing content.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
You know,
who's still around there, Mike? Who's around? Who's left?
Yeah, I know, man. But I don't know. Like, I feel like at the same time, you know, although there's all this different content that's coming out, there's like 1 million+ podcasts out there. There's 1 million+ YouTube channels. I feel like at the end of the day, though, I feel like that people are enjoying what they're doing now compared to like 2-3 years ago.
I do think there was like a gold rush for this kind of stuff. And there's an idea like, oh, if I keep doing this, I'm gonna get rich, I'm gonna get signed. And those that have that mentality tend to fizzle out because it'll take you. I can guarantee you, Mike Wexler. I know you in the SoCal space for 2 years personally. You've probably been grinding longer than that. But I guarantee you, if you got signed by BT Sport tomorrow, they'll be like, Mike is so lucky. Just overnight success. Probably scooped him up from school. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's always gonna be haters, man. But if you go in there and say, I'm doing this thing just to get famous, just to get that pop, you're getting like 6 episodes in and going, this is lame. I'm out.
Well, see, I have personally a passion for this. Like, I've had this passion for 10+ years now. You know what I mean? Like, I've wanted to do talking to people. Like, I've wanted to do broadcasting. You know what I mean? Like, Vin Scully was the one that inspired this podcast and inspired my dream, you know, as a sports broadcaster. So, you know, like, this is something that I've wanted for a long, long time. And it's something that I consider it's not a job. You know what I mean? Like, the current job that I have as a PA announcer for Cal State San Bernardino, I don't feel like it's a job at all. You know, sure, there's struggles. Like, recently, I just barely found out what a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is in baseball. But
okay. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that side of things until recently. So
yeah.
But no, I still love it though. I still love announcing. I still love what I do, connecting with people like Flobo, you know, getting those. You know, every aspect of this business I love because that's something I don't consider a job.
Gotcha. 6-4-3 double play, right?
No, you know what's funny? Really quick about that. So during that game, it was a double header. So we were there for 12 hours. But it was throughout the entire game. You just heard it was either the coaching staff or it was just players on the field saying 2-4-3, 2-4-3. What in the world is a 2-4-3? And I understood it now. It was about the play, about what play is going to happen. Like, I finally understood after all these years.
As a long-time baseball fan, I was actually have plans this year to get a scorebook and learn how to score the game. Like an old man. So there's always something to learn. Baseball's my game. I love that thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know what's funny too is that as a PA, I'm also very heavily involved with the stats too, because like I have to call out the strikes, call out the balls and the walks and all that. So
do you have to do like the hype for the team?
Yeah, the batting lineup. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah,
even though what sucks is that on those little things that the coaches fill out, they literally have the positions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm like, dang it, center fielder.
Right, I got time for this. Yeah, 7, 8, 9.
Oh man. One other thing going on topic when it comes to Flobo is the fact that you get to connect with all these people. You get to connect with your audience. You get to connect with the people that you work with. We mentioned earlier about Jack Farmer, Evan, you know, and all these other numerous people that you get to connect with while working or even as, you know, in your audience. So the question I have for you is that, you know, how do you feel about making all these connections, like connecting, you know, your audience on maybe a personal level or anything of that sort?
So this branding of your boy Flobito is the first time where I can say it's full time. You know, I had many day jobs. I worked at a loan office. I worked at Target in the stockroom. I sold hand sanitizer door to door. It was before the pandemic. But to say that I do content, I get to talk to people, especially on the flagship New Amsterdam Radio, where I talk with creatives about their process, has been so rewarding and so fulfilling. You know, and I say this a lot of times on that show. So if you are familiar with that, I apologize. But the whole world shifted when they said, hey, look, that thing you devoted your whole life to, comedian, dancer, broadcaster, is not an essential. Stay home. And being able to talk to people through that mentally and be like, oh, how did you feel when the world said you're not essential? You know, your jokes aren't essential, has been the stuff of legends, you know, actual legends, right? So yeah, it's so much fun, man, making new friends and connecting with people. I feel like there's some people I haven't met in the flesh yet. I think I'm not sure if he's a friend of the show, but Adam Woods, I haven't seen him in real life before. And it's funny because I think I've worked with him, 15 hours, 16 hours on different projects in the pandemic. It's just nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because you think about the pandemic and then just how everything had shut down. You really don't see that face-to-face connection. But I'm really, as much as the internet's a very polarizing place and in very much, you know, just sometimes a headache, it's awesome to just make those connections, you know, online too. I mean, if it wasn't for the internet, I don't think we would have met. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
It's awesome to make those connections, even if it's on a virtual phase.
Absolutely. Jack said that you were actually real. I didn't believe it, but so he met you. You were a real person. It was great.
Oh yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting the Jack Farmer over at the Republic of Lucha, which is in Pasadena, and it was awesome because again, through the virtual meeting in person, I don't know. Like for me, meeting someone in person feels more special than virtually. I don't know why, but I feel like there's a special feeling when you're like, hey, you're real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was like, you look taller in real life. I was like, well, can I sit down on? Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like some of the people that I've met in person, some of them are two things, are either shorter and they're like, okay, like cool. Or they're taller than me because I stand at 5'11", close to 6 foot, depending on who you ask. And it's like, you know, and I meet taller people that are like, oh man, you're right here, man.
Right. Yeah. Same boat. People think I'm like 4'11", and then they see me like, oh, okay. You have them heft.
So Flobo, before we get everything wrapped up, I do want to thank you so much for taking your time, getting to be on your story, finally showcasing your story. But one final thing before we go, this is kind of a typical podcast question. I've asked this every single podcast, but I like to say this question in a sense where like it's also a personal question as well. And that is,
Three Musketeers. Yep.
No, the question I have is, you know, out of everything that you've done thus far, you know, from your beginnings and all the connections that you've made and all the people that you've touched through your content to now, is Flobo proud of his story?
Oh, for the longest time, the answer was no. For the longest time, the answer was absolutely not. And I can tell you the exact moment when it was. And this is fairly recent, actually. It was last September when my undergrad hit me up for an alumni spotlight. And they asked me what was I working on. And this is after I went back there and taught their kids how to do comedy. And I wrote down everything I've done as an adult. And so I was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm a marathon runner. I lost 155 pounds. I was an editor of my high school yearbook. I did all the podcasts. I do all that stuff. And I wrote page and page and page, wrote 7 books. And I was like, holy crap. That's a lot. That is a lot of things I've done. And I'm going to be 37 in June. So like, I'm still fairly young. So I was like, oh man, this is the first time I really felt like a celebrity or successful, or I made it in that way. Because when you're in the woods and you're juggling a show where you get 6 downloads, or you're trying to get a wrestler to be on your show and they go, sorry kids, you can't do it. You're like, man, I can't even make rent this month. What am I doing? I should probably work at a normal job, or I should probably quit and move back to New York and open a deli or something, you know. But when someone goes, oh my gosh, you're doing so much, and you're on TV and you're on game shows, you know, that's something that makes you go, yeah, I do got it pretty good. And so yeah, I guess I am proud of my story now.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to just, just to see yourself and how much work that you put in and how much dedication, passion you put through it. So, just looking back at the beginnings to now, it's just awesome to see that progression, just how much success that you've gotten for it.
Try to be like you, Wexler.
Me?
Yeah.
Flobo, I'm just a 23-year-old kid trying to pursue a dream.
You had the thing before I even met you, I was like, oh, have you heard about Sock Monkey? I'm like, is that a dude, a stable? Is that a guy? What is it, an anime? It's like, no, man, Sock Monkey Mike. And then, yeah, there you go. You get yourself ingrained to that way. No one can ever say that you didn't earn it because you've been out there with these shows, shaking hands, kissing babies, turning to if you need to. Yeah, you're an inspiration, man.
I appreciate it, man. I mean, so are you. I mean, you talk a lot about, especially in this podcast, about, when people tell you no and you still keep going, you make them convince, you convince them to say yes. You convince them to say like, wow, you're really doing something. And I feel like that's very inspirational and influential.
Oh, I'm an influencer now? Okay, maybe. We'll leave it at that because we could argue about this all day. Because I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm terrible. But yeah.
Well, no, I appreciate it, Flobo. 30-second plug, anything that you want to plug, anything coming up, where can they find you? Where can they find the legendary Flobo?
Yeah, straight up, flobito.com, FLOBITO.com is my personal website. Learn more about the shows I podcast and host at newamsterdam.com. That's KNEW. Amsterdam.com. And if you were listening and you said, oh man, this guy has some cool stories, my book, Graduation Day, available now at Amazon, is basically my memoir. It goes through the chapters and tribulations I learned as an adult. It's basically a letter to myself when I graduated college. Graduation Day is the name, available now on Amazon.
See, that's a beautiful outro. And now I have to do an outro myself. Damn it. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure, once again, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you could listen to your podcast, make sure you hit that follow button, hit that like button. I think there's a like button on Spotify. I don't know. But make sure you download this episode as well. If you're watching on YouTube, I really thank you for still watching from this entirety of this podcast on YouTube. But while you're doing it, maybe hit subscribe, maybe hit like, maybe comment something nice, please. And just hey, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of Your Story With. Thank you so much to the legendary Flobo.
Thank you.